Hey folks, before we begin today's show, I want to thank our awesome sponsors. The first is Idle Academy. Idle is the first and only authorized vocational school for instructional design and online learning. It includes a comprehensive hands-on curriculum with certifications, credentials, expert coaches, mentors, a community of practice, paid experience opportunities, industry-preferred software access, live events, and ongoing updates. Your entire instructional design career is neatly packaged behind a single login. Check out all the details at www.idlecourses.com/academy, and you can use my code Luke for $88 off the yearly membership. Okay, let's bring on the introduction music and let's start the show. Hello, learning nerds, and welcome on in to the nerdiest podcast you're going to hear today. I'm your host. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm an assistant director of instructional design, a lecturer, author, blogger, podcaster, and YouTuber. And overall, folks, I am here to be able to help you out pertaining to all things instructional design and, of course, how to be able to design meaningful, relevant, and interesting types of learning experiences. And you can find all the resources that I have for you over at drlukehobson.com. Today's episode is all about learning conferences. So what's funny is that before the pandemic, I was constantly attending learning conferences, and every time I went, I always left disappointed. There was all this hype and buzz around how great the event is going to be, but in my opinion, they never really lived up to expectations. The thing that always bothered me, though, it always bothered me, was that everyone else seemed to be having a good time. So I'm the outlier. Something is wrong with what I am doing, and it took me a bit to be able to figure out, well, what exactly am I doing wrong? If you follow me on LinkedIn, you've seen that I recently attended D2L's Fusion in Toronto. Unlike past conferences, I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this event. And after reflecting upon the last 3 days, I realized that I didn't follow any of my old patterns that I used to do when it comes to going to conferences. And I believe that this is why I got the most out of this learning conference in particular. So, what did I learn along the way? As you can probably guess, on today's episode, I want to be able to share with you my top 5 tips on how to get the most out of your next learning conference. Tip number 1 is networking with people far in advance. This was the first conference I went to solo, and because of this, it forced me not to just hang out with my team members. We go to conferences to meet other people, but it was so easy to only be with my friends and stay with my team and essentially staying inside of my comfort zone. To be clear, there is nothing wrong with hanging out with your teammates and your friends, and that's absolutely wonderful. But if you don't network with others, you don't leave with forming any different types of new relationships. And that is absolutely the point of going to a conference, is to meet other people. So traveling alone, which I didn't plan on this, by the way, it just kind of happened, but traveling alone to this conference, it really forced me to find other people who were going to be going to Fusion. So the first step that I did was that I shared on my social media channels that I was going to be going to Fusion, and I told people to contact me if they were going. Now, sure enough, I heard from several friends and peers, and even for those of you who listen to the podcast, that said that you were going to be going too, which was awesome. So that way, I was just like, okay, I have my people. I can go and actually meet up with folks who I have known for a long time on the internet. And hey, it's going to be great to finally be able to meet up with these people in person for the first time ever. This one step was a huge win in my book because it brushed aside the feelings of nervousness, and I actually felt ready and excited to be able to go. And not to mention, too, this was my first time in Toronto. So I'm traveling solo. I'm going to a city I've never been to before. You can probably expect that, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And knowing who was going to be attending from my type of network was really, really helpful. My second tip for you is to make plans now. Like right now. Once you've figured out who is going to be attending your learning conference, try to make plans with them right then and there. Something I found is that it's really hard to be spontaneous with plans during conferences. I am kind of a spontaneous person in nature where I like to be able to just go up, decide something, and go do something. And I quickly realized that everyone already had their agenda set for the sessions, their breakfasts they were going to attend, the dinners, the traveling, like all these different things. It was already said and done. So I would suggest now, if you can get on their books, try to be able to do that so that that way you're going to be included inside other early plans. I was reminded of this lesson a few times when I ran into people who I didn't know were actually going to be at Fusion, and it was a complete and total surprise. And of course, I wanted to be able to catch up with them. And then I said, like, what are you doing tonight? Do you want to go grab dinner? And they said, oh, sorry, I already have plans with my team, or I'm already going to be attending this event or doing this, which is, of course, totally understandable. So a bit of planning goes a long way. My next tip kind of piggybacks off of that last one, and it's to schedule sessions early on. If you are attending a well-known conference, you should have an app to download of each session and their details. If this is the case, I'd highly recommend to go through the sessions and sign up in advance for which ones you want to attend. This helps for two reasons. The first is that you can connect early on with the speakers, and you can mention that you're excited for their talk. You can find them on LinkedIn or email, whatever it is. And then when you go to introduce yourself after their presentation, they're going to recognize you, or at least recognize your name. The second is that this creates your agenda for the week, and it helps you to stay organized and on track. The worst is when a ton of people leave one session all at once, and you're kind of stuck. You're stuck in the crowd, and you're trying to figure out room numbers and where to go next, and you can't see. So I would definitely recommend to be able to have this all set and done at the beginning. Also, I'd highly, highly recommend signing up for any networking event they are hosting. They is in the conference. So once again, we go to conferences to meet other people and to learn. Going to a networking event will introduce you to others who share mutual interests. I signed up for every single networking session that I could at Fusion, and the folks that I met during those networking events were the ones who I kept on bumping into over the 3 days, which was awesome. And once again, since I went alone, this was oddly comforting to see the same people that I recognized every single time in the different types of sessions throughout the 3 days. The fourth tip is to stick to your routines. I met up with friend of the show, Dr. Tom Tobin, the first night I got to Toronto. Tom is a conference pro and a frequent traveler, and we got to talking about what it's like to travel so much, and I asked him for any tips that he was willing to share, since I would like to get back into kind of hopping on the conference circuit and being able to do this. And he said his best tip would be to stick to my normal routine. He talked about how he always felt off after conferences, and after kind of thinking about it a bit more, he was like, oh yeah, I know why I don't feel right anymore. It's because I change everything. The diet, the sleep patterns, the exercise routine, all of that just kind of goes out the window. So what he told me was to stick to my normal ways as much as possible, and I listened to Tom. I did exactly that. I still got in my early morning workout sessions, and I tried to go to bed before 11 p.m. That was kind of hard to do with some of the events and the dinners and the networking sessions, but I was able to always get back into the hotel at least around 10:30, 11 p.m., and then quickly go to bed as soon as I could. And just as Tom described, I felt great every day. I never felt like I was in a chaotic environment or that my body had to adapt and bounce back or anything of a sort. And since I was going to Fusion for a speaking engagement, if you saw on LinkedIn that I was talking about how to be able to use generative AI for being able to revise and to improve our types of online learning experiences, well, for that type of session, I wanted to be at my very best. So Tom's advice was really helpful for everything, and I would strongly recommend you to do the same thing. If you are finding this difficult to do, I would encourage you to start a small workout group for accountability. One of the sessions on Fusion app was something called Jogging with John. And I remember kind of just like reading this and laughing to myself and being like, wait, is there really a session to go for a jog with John Baker, the president of D2L? And sure enough, it was true. That was a real thing. And Tom shared with me about how he was one of the original members who came up with this type of an idea for a workout session. With Tom being a frequent runner and a marathoner, it makes a lot of sense to be able to say, can I find like-minded people who want to exercise with me, even at a conference? And he was able to do so and actually brought in the president of D2L, John Baker. So who knows? Next year, it's going to be in Savannah for the conference, and maybe there's going to be a lifting with Luke session. Yeah, we'll see. All kind of depends upon the size of a gym wherever we're staying. But you'll find me at the gym next year, I promise you. And my final tip, folks, is to be sure to follow up. Once the conference is done and you're back home, I make it a point to follow up with folks that you met. It's pretty much impossible to say goodbye to everybody. There's a lot of chaos, and there were plenty of people who I was talking with that I basically said like, oh, I'm sure I'm going to see you again at the conference. And then I never did. We just never crossed paths again. And it feels a bit odd meeting these amazing, great people and then not knowing if you're going to chat with them again in the future or not. So be the one who takes the initiative and contact them via email, LinkedIn, or however you got their contact information. Either way, I send over a note and just to say how great it was to meet up with them, and hopefully you're going to see them again sometime soon. That small act of kindness is going to go a long way, and of course, it's going to help them to be able to remember you. So hey folks, I hope these tips help. I hope you have an amazing time at your next type of learning conference. I know that I had an absolute blast at Fusion. I'm very much looking forward to being able to go next year. And like I said, I'm going to try to do more conferences. My schedule is truly bonkers, and it takes quite a bit to be able to travel and to leave and to go do things. So I'm going to try to do more. I would love to meet up with more of you in person. It was so awesome to see many of you who came to my talk. We had about probably 200 people in the room, which is a ton of fun. And I recognized so many faces and names from the little name badges that everyone was wearing. So it was awesome. So if you came to my session, by the way, thank you so much for coming, for your support, for chatting with me afterwards. It was so much fun to be able to meet all of you. And hopefully I can do more of that in the future. I also want to give a shout out to D2L2 because they put on an incredible conference, obviously, as you've now heard from this podcast episode. And I just want to give them a big thank you as well. It was their idea to invite me to speak at everything, and they were so kind to me. It was so wonderful to meet all of their staff too. For every single day, I had an amazing agenda because of them and all of their planning and all of their efforts. So a huge thank you to them as well too. And by the way, I have to also give a major shout out to all of you who signed up for the 5th cohort of Instructional Design Institute. It just launched again on a Monday, and we actually have our largest cohort yet, which is amazing. I cannot wait to nerd out with all of you very soon. As the timing of this recording, I'm going to be seeing all of you actually tonight, which is awesome. So a big thank you for all of you again who signed up for IDI, who said hello, and everything else of the sort. Of course, folks, as always, if you enjoyed the show, be sure to give it a 5-star rating wherever you are listening. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else. Always appreciate those ratings. And once again, anything else that you have for follow-up questions or thoughts around the show or wanted to learn more about the resources or everything else that I have for you, feel free. Go over to drlukehobson.com. That's where everything is. All right, everybody. That's all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.